Did you know that the color of the sky used to be the only clock you ever needed? That your entire life, from the moment you were born to the day you would pass, could be governed not by the ticking of tiny metal gears, but by the slow, predictable arc of the sun and the patient turning of the seasons. There was no anxiety about the coming Monday, because Monday was just the day after Sunday, a day for a new set of chores, not a new level of existential dread. You couldn't be late for work, because work was all around you, woven into the very fabric of your existence. It's a world that feels impossibly distant, yet it's right there in our collective memory, a quiet hum beneath the roar of modern life. Before you get too comfortable, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel to encourage me to make more content like this. Also, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin tonight's journey. You are waking up, but not to an alarm. There is no sharp digital scream tearing you from your dreams. Instead, the first hint of grey light seeps through a small window, a soft, milky wash that slowly pushes the deep shadows from the corners of your small room. The air is cool and smells of damp earth. Wood smoke from last night is fading embers and the sweet, grassy breath of a nearby cow. You stretch your limbs beneath a heavy wool blanket, the rough texture a familiar comfort against your skin. Your body knows it is time to rise, not because a clock commands it, but because the birds have started their morning chorus, a messy, joyful symphony that is your true morning call. This is a world measured in sensations, not in seconds. Your day is not divided into hours. It is a series of tasks, a flow of being that follows a rhythm as old as the hills outside your door. You don't think about a 9-to-5 schedule. You think about milking the cow before her udders become too full. You think about mending the fence at the far end of the pasture while the morning light is still good. You think about the sun reaching its highest point in the sky, a silent, golden bell that tells you it's time to rest and eat your meager lunch of bread and cheese. Your stomach, the sun, and the needs of the land are your schedule. They are honest timekeepers, and they never lie. Time is cyclical, a great wheel turning. You do the same things in the spring that your father and his father did. You plant when the soil is warm, you harvest when the crops are golden, and you rest when the world is covered in a blanket of snow. Last night, you probably experienced what people in your time take for granted, the phenomenon of a first and second sleep. You went to bed not long after dusk, slept for a few hours, and then woke up in the quiet heart of the night. This wasn't a time of anxious tossing and turning. This was a calm, accepted break in the darkness, a time for prayer, for quiet conversation with your spouse, or for simply sitting by the low fire and thinking. It was a peaceful, meditative hour or two before you returned to your slumber, a natural rhythm of rest that the invention of bright, artificial light would one day erase from human experience. Time itself was more flexible, more accommodating to the natural pulses of the human body. Life is governed by what historians call task orientation. The clock doesn't tell you when to stop working. The completion of the task does. You churn butter until it is butter. You shear the sheep until the sheep is shorn. This gives your work a tangible sense of completion, a wholeness that is deeply satisfying. Historians still debate the true extent of leisure time in pre-industrial societies. Some argue that despite the hard labor, the lack of a rigid clock-based work structure meant more control over one's own pace, with long fallow periods in winter offering a kind of freedom we can barely imagine. Your sense of self is tied not to your productivity per hour, but to your place in this great, turning wheel of seasons, this community, this land. Your life has a coherence, a sense of belonging to a specific place and a specific rhythm, but you can feel a subtle change in the air, a distant whisper of a different way of living, a way where time is not a circle, but a straight, unforgiving line. The world outside your door is governed by the sun, but the world inside is governed by a different rhythm, a sound that is the very heartbeat of your home. You step across the packed earth floor of your cottage, the air thick with the lanolin scent of raw wool and the comforting aroma of stew simmering over the central hearth. Light is a precious commodity, filtering in through the same small window that woke you, illuminating a dance of dust motes in the air. This single room is your kitchen, your bedroom, and your workshop. There is no separation, no commute. Your life and your labor are a single, tangled thread. In the center of the room, dominating the space like a sacred altar, stands the loom. It is a hulking wooden frame, a complex web of strings and levers that you know as intimately as you know your own hands. You sit on the worn wooden bench, your feet finding their familiar place on the pedals. Your wife sits near the fire, her hands a blur of motion as she spins raw wool into thread on her spinning wheel. Its gentle worry, a constant, soothing counterpoint to the more percussive sounds of the loom. Your children are not at a school. They are on the floor, carding wool, their small hands combing the tangled fibers into straight, usable lengths. This is their education. They are learning the trade that has sustained your family for generations. There is no clear line between work and play, between family time and production time. It is all one. A joke is shared over the clatter of the shuttle. A story is told to the rhythm of the spinning wheel. Your work is not a place you go to. It is something you do, something you are, right here in the heart of your family. You begin to weave. Your body moves in a practiced, fluid dance. Your feet press the treadles, raising and lowering the heddles, creating a space between the threads of the warp. Your arm swings, sending the shuttle, a small wooden boat, carrying the weft thread, flying through the gap. Clack, you pull the beater forward. A heavy wooden frame that packs the new thread tightly against the one before it. Thump, feet move, arm swings, clack, beater pulls, thump. It is a deeply physical, deeply human rhythm. You can feel the tension of the threads. You can see the cloth growing line by line before your very eyes. You are not a cog in a machine. You are the master of this small universe of wood and wool. You can speed up, you can slow down. If a thread breaks, you stop and fix it, your fingers nimble and sure. The finished product, a bolt of sturdy woolen cloth, will be a direct result of your skill, your strength, and your attention. There is a profound and simple dignity in this. This way of life is known as the domestic system, or the putting out system. You don't own the wool you are working with. A merchant, a clothier, brought it to you, and he will return in a week or two to collect the finished fabric and pay you for your labor. This relationship introduces a subtle tension. He is the one with the capital, the one connected to the wider markets in London and beyond. You have the skill, but he has the power. Still, within the walls of your cottage, you are your own master. In fact, many artisans like you practice the informal tradition of St. Monday. After a Sunday of rest and, more often than not, a good deal of ale, Monday is often taken as a day of slow recovery, a day for gardening or mending tools. The work can be made up with longer hours on Tuesday and Wednesday. The week bends to the needs of your life, not the other way around. Historians still debate whether this system was a golden age of worker autonomy or just a more picturesque form of exploitation, where the isolation of workers in their homes prevented them from organizing for better pay. For you, it is simply the way things are, a balance of freedom and obligation that feels as natural as the rising sun. But the merchant who brings the wool is starting to talk of new ways, of machines that can spin more thread than 10 women, of buildings where hundreds of looms can work at once. You listen, but you cannot truly imagine it. How could you ever separate this, the clack and thump of the loom, from the warmth of the fire and the sleeping breath of your children in the night? The clack and thump of your loom is a rhythm of survival, but it is not your only one. Your family does not live by thread alone. A significant part of your sustenance and your sense of security comes from the land. Not the small patch of garden behind your cottage, but the vast open fields and common lands that stretch out around your village. You walk out into the soft morning mist, the air smelling of wet grass and distant livestock. This land belongs to everyone, and therefore to no one. It is a messy, beautiful patchwork of unfenced strips of land, where you and your neighbors grow meager crops. It is the common pasture where your single milk cow can graze alongside a dozen others. It is the woods where you have the right to gather fallen branches for your hearth fire, a practice known as istover. This connection to the land is a deep, psychological anchor. It is your birthright. It means that even when the cloth merchant pays poorly, your family will not starve. You can forage for berries in the autumn. You can let your children chase after a pig in the stubble of a harvested field. You have the ancient right of gleaning, which allows your wife and children to walk the fields after the main harvest is complete, gathering the fallen ears of grain that the reapers left behind. It seems like a small thing, but those gleaned grains can mean the difference between a full belly and a hungry winter. This land is your safety net, woven from centuries of custom and mutual understanding. You do not own a deed to it, written on a piece of paper. You belong to it, a connection far deeper than mere ownership. It is a part of who you are, as much as the calluses on your hands from the loom. But now, straight lines are appearing in your ancient, curved world. Men with measuring chains and wooden stakes have been walking the fields, their faces grim and unfamiliar. They speak in a language of acts and ordinances, of parliamentary decisions made in a city, London, that you can barely imagine. They are talking about something called enclosure. The idea is simple and brutal. The old open fields and common lands are to be carved up, consolidated, and fenced off into private property, owned by the wealthy landowner who lives in the great house on the hill. They say it is for efficiency. They say it will improve crop yields and allow for better livestock breeding, like the famous Bakewell sheep that are said to be more meat than wool. It is the logic of the straight line, of the ledger book, applied to the messy, living earth. Slowly, and then, all at once, the fences go up. Raw, new wooden fences and thorny hawthorn hedges that slice across. Ancient footpaths and divide pastures that have been open for 1,000 years. A gate with a heavy lock now bars the way to the woods where you gathered your firewood. The field where your cow grazed is now filled with a flock of sheep belonging to a single man. Their wool destined for a market you will never see. The practice of gleaning is now called trespassing. The land that sustained you, that anchored you, has been pulled out from under your feet. It is a profound psychic wound. You feel untethered, adrift. The cyclical world of the seasons is being replaced by the harsh geometry of private property. Historians still debate whether the undeniable gains in agricultural productivity brought about by enclosure were worth the immense social cost and the creation of a vast, landless class. For you, it is not a debate. It is the cold, hard reality of a locked gate. Your connection to this place has been legally, violently severed. You are now truly dependent on the cloth merchant, on the clack and thump of the loom, and you are not alone. All around you, your neighbors, now dispossessed and desperate, are beginning to pack their few belongings. The emptying of the fields has begun, creating a silent, desperate army of people with nowhere to go but towards the towns, where whispers of a new kind of work are growing louder. Your feet, accustomed to the soft earth of the fields, now tread on paths hardened by the passage of countless desperate people. The world you knew is behind you, fenced off and silent. Ahead lies the unknown, a horizon smudged with a permanent, greasy haze you've never seen before. You are walking towards a sound that is not of this world. It is not the lowing of cattle, nor the rhythm of the loom, nor the chime of a village church bell. It is a rhythmic, earth-shaking thump, followed by a long, sorrowful hiss. It is a sound that seems to come from the very bowels of the earth, a giant, angry heartbeat that grows louder with every step you take. The air grows thick with the acrid bite of coal smoke, a smell so sharp and foul it makes your eyes water. You come over a small rise, and you see it, Your mind struggles to find a word for the thing before you. It is a structure, a monstrous thing of blackened brick, iron, and wood, squatting beside a gaping black hole in the ground, the entrance to a coal mine. But the structure itself seems alive. From its top, a colossal wooden beam, as thick as an ancient oak tree, rocks slowly up and down, a great nodding head praying to a grey, indifferent sky. One end of the beam is connected to a long iron rod that disappears into the blackness of the mine. The other end is attached to a cylinder of gleaming, dark iron, from which clouds of steam erupt with that deafening, soul-shaking hiss. It groans and creaks, it sweats hot water from its joints, and beneath it, a fire roars in a brick furnace, its angry orange glow visible through a small opening. You have heard whispers of these contraptions, these fire engines, but the stories did not prepare you for the reality. It feels less like a machine and more like a captured beast, an iron demon chained to this spot and forced into eternal labor. This is one of Thomas Newcomen's atmospheric engines, a miracle of the age, designed for a single Herculean task, to pump water from the flooded tunnels of the mine. A job that once required hundreds of men and horses working in endless, exhausting relays. You watch, mesmerized, as the great beam lifts, drawing gallons upon gallons of dark, sludgy water from the earth's deep places, and then releases it to run in a black stream down the hillside. It does this over and over, without rest, without complaint. Its rhythm is relentless. Thump, hiss, thump, hiss. You see men standing nearby, their faces smudged with coal dust, but they are not working the machine. They are watching it, tending to it. They feed its fiery gut with coal. They oil its groaning joints. The engine does the real work. One boy, they say, used to have the crucial job of opening and closing the valves to let the steam in and out at just the right moment. It's a bit of an old tale, but they say a lazy lad named Humphrey Potter, wanting to go play, rigged up a system of ropes and catches to the rocking beam itself, making the machine open and close its own valves. He automated the automator. He made the demon tame itself. Whether the story is true or not, it speaks to a new kind of thinking, a new relationship with work. The machine is not just a tool, it is a partner, a thing that can be improved and refined until it needs you less and less. A profound and unsettling question begins to form in your mind as you stand there, feeling the ground tremble beneath your feet. A man needs to sleep, a horse needs to rest and feed, but this iron beast needs only fire and water. It never tires. It will work all day and all through the blackest night, its monstrous heartbeat a new, permanent rhythm in the landscape. Historians still debate whether this demon created the new world, or if the world, in its desperate, deepening hunger for coal, summoned the demon into existence to serve its needs. You don't know the answer. All you know is that you are made of muscle and bone, hope and fear. How can a person like you ever hope to compete with a creature that has a heart of fire and bones of iron? The future, it seems, will belong to the tireless. The sound of the steam engine was the heartbeat of a single, chained beast. But this is the roar of the entire herd. You are standing before a building unlike any you have ever seen. It is not a church, nor a great house. It is a long, stark box of brick, 5 stories high, with a relentless, symmetrical grid of windows that stare out like 1,000 unblinking eyes. It squats beside a fast-flowing river, a great wooden water wheel, colossal and dripping, turning slowly and inexorably, powering the lifeblood of this place. This is a factory, a cotton mill, and from its walls comes a sound that is not a beat, but a solid wall of noise, a physical force that presses against your chest and makes the bones in your skull vibrate. You hesitate at the door, but the press of hungry, desperate people behind you pushes you forward into the belly of the beast. The moment you step inside, your senses are overwhelmed, shattered. The noise is the first thing. It is a deafening, continuous, thunderous roar, 1,000 clattering, metallic rhythms, all fighting for dominance. It is the sound of an army of skeletons dancing on a tin roof during a hailstorm. You cannot hear the person next to you speak. You cannot even hear your own thoughts. Your mind, used to the quiet rhythm of the hand loom and the whisper of the wind, is simply erased by the sheer volume. This is a cathedral of noise. Then your eyes try to adjust to the dim, hazy light. The air is thick, choked with a snowstorm of cotton fibers, a fine white dust that coats everything and clogs your throat with your first breath. Long, cathedral-like shafts of light pierce the gloom from the high windows, illuminating the swirling dust like a holy, yet profane, vision. And in this strange light, you see them, the machines, rows upon rows of them, stretching into the shadowy distance, a forest of iron and wood. They are Richard Arkwright's water frames, spinning cotton into thread with a speed and precision that seems like sorcery. Belts and pulleys crisscross the ceiling, a canopy of moving leather straps that turn endlessly, driven by the great water wheel outside. Everything is in motion. Nothing is still. The floor beneath your feet trembles with a constant rhythmic vibration, a deep tremor that travels up your legs and settles in your stomach. And then you see the people. They are mostly women and children, their faces pale and slick with sweat in the humid air, their movements quick and practiced. They don't look like weavers or spinners from your village. They look like extensions of the machines they tend. They dart back and forth, their hands a blur as they piece together broken threads, their bodies contorted into strange shapes to avoid the relentlessly moving parts. You see a small child, no older than your own son, crawl on his belly under a massive, clattering machine to sweep up the fallen cotton dust. They are called scavengers, and their small size makes them perfect for the job. A job where a moment's inattention could mean a crushed limb or a scalped head. There is no conversation, no laughter. There is only the noise, the motion, and the watchful eye of the overseer, a grim-faced man who stalks the aisles, his presence a constant, silent threat. You are no longer a craftsman. You are an operative, a hand. Your autonomy, the freedom to set your own pace that you cherished in your cottage, is gone. Here, the machine is the master. Its speed is your speed. If it breaks, you must fix it quickly, before the overseer's wrath descends. If you are slow, you are useless. Your very sense of self, once rooted in the mastery of a craft, begins to dissolve in this overwhelming environment. Historians still debate whether the discipline and productivity of the factory system were a necessary step towards modernity or a brutal form of social control that broke the spirit of a generation. Standing here, with your ears ringing and your throat raw, you feel your individuality being ground down, milled into something uniform and interchangeable, just like the cotton fibers swirling in the air around you. Your first day, or what you think is a day, blurs into an eternity of noise and motion. You do not see the sun move across the sky. You do not feel the afternoon warmth give way to the evening chill. Your world is the humid air, the swirling cotton dust, and the relentless, hungry rhythm of the machine you are assigned to. Your back aches with a fire you have never known, a deep, protesting pain from standing in one place for 12, maybe 14 hours. Your mind, once accustomed to the varied tasks of the cottage and field, feels numb, pummeled into a dull stupor by the repetitive action you have been taught. You are a human shuttle, feeding the machine, clearing its jams, serving its needs. But then, a new sound cuts through the chaos, a sound sharper and more commanding than the roar of the machinery itself. A brutal clang of iron on iron, a bell high above the factory floor, rings out with a piercing authority. Instantly, as if a spell has been broken, the great leather belts are shifted, and the forest of iron machines, slowly, grudgingly, spins to a halt. The sudden silence is almost as shocking as the noise was. In its place is a low hum of exhausted bodies, a collective sigh, the shuffle of weary feet on the wooden floor. This bell is the voice of the true master of this place, It is the voice of the clock. As you stumble out of the factory and into the grey twilight, your eyes are drawn upward, past the smoking chimney stacks, to the source of that command. There, built into the very structure of the mill, is a massive clock tower, its pale face glowing faintly in the dying light. This is the new god of your world. Its steeple is the factory chimney, its sermon is the shrieking whistle in the morning, and its unblinking eye is this giant clock face, visible from every hovel and tenement in this new, sprawling town. Its two black hands are the arbiters of your life. They tell you when you must wake, when you may eat, and when you are permitted to collapse into your straw pallet. Your own body, with its ancient rhythms of hunger and fatigue, is no longer the authority. You might be starving, but you will not eat until the clock allows it. You might be dizzy with exhaustion, but you will not rest until the bell rings. Time is no longer a gentle, flowing river. It has been captured, tamed, and broken into tiny, equal, and unforgiving pieces. Seconds, minutes, hours. It is time as a tyrant. This new god has new virtues and new sins. The highest virtue is punctuality. Arriving even a minute after the morning whistle results in a fine, a portion of your meager wages docked by the overseer. The greatest sin is wasting time. There is no room for Saint Monday here. Every second is owned by the factory owner, a commodity he has purchased from you, and he intends to get his money's worth. To enforce this new religion of the clock, a whole new profession has been born. This is a person, often an elderly man, who you pay a few pennies a week to walk the dark, muddy streets before dawn, carrying a long pole with a wire brush or knob of wire on the end, which he uses to tap insistently on your window pane until he is sure you are awake. Your waking is now outsourced, a task too important to be left to the sun or to your own body clock. You are living in a world of linear, mechanical time. It has a beginning, the morning whistle, and an end, the evening bell. It is a straight line, and you must march along it at the prescribed pace. This is a profound psychological shift. The cyclical time of the seasons gave life a sense of renewal and return. This linear time gives life a sense of urgency, of constantly running out. Historians still debate whether this rigid time discipline was a deliberate tool for creating a docile, obedient workforce, breaking their old, irregular habits, or simply a logistical necessity for coordinating the work of hundreds of people and machines. For you, it feels like a cage. Your day is no longer your own. It belongs to the two black hands moving with relentless, mechanical precision around the pale, judgmental face of the tyrant on the skyline. Your life is now bounded by the factory whistle and the muddy streets of the town. The world has shrunk to the distance you can walk before your shift begins. The countryside, the place you were born, feels as distant as the moon. But now, new rumors are spreading through the crowded tenements, whispers as strange and unsettling as the first stories of the steam engines. They speak of a new kind of road, not made of dirt or stone, but of two parallel lines of iron stretching for miles across the landscape. And on this road, they say, runs a new kind of beast, an iron horse that pulls a train of heavy carriages behind it, breathing smoke and fire, moving faster than any horse has ever galloped. Most people dismiss it as a tall tale, a fantasy. How could anything so heavy move at all, let alone at speed? Then one day, you join a crowd of curious and fearful townspeople, walking out to a newly cleared strip of land where these iron rails gleam under the grey sky. You wait, a sense of nervous anticipation buzzing through the air. You hear it before you see it, a low, distant rumbling that grows steadily, a sound that seems to travel not through the air, but through the soles of your feet, through the very earth itself. Then comes a sound unlike any other, a high, piercing shriek that rips through the air, a metallic scream that makes the hair on your arm stand up. And then it rounds a bend. Your mind freezes. It is a monster, a black iron boiler on wheels, a tall chimney spewing a thick plume of black smoke. Great pistons driving giant wheels with a furious, chuffing rhythm. It is George Stephenson's rocket, or one of its descendants, and it is pulling a line of open-topped wagons filled with coal. It moves with a terrifying, unnatural speed. You have spent your life measuring speed by the pace of your own 2 feet, or the steady trot of a farm horse. This thing is a blur. It passes you in a whirlwind of noise, hot steam, and the smell of sulfur and burning coal. The ground shakes so violently you fear it might crack open. The sheer power of it is obscene, exhilarating, and deeply frightening. In the early days, learned doctors and men of science seriously debated whether the human body could even withstand such velocities, which could reach a blistering 30 miles per hour. They worried that passengers' bodies would be shaken apart, that their blood would be unable to circulate, or that they would simply be unable to breathe in the rush of air. An even more curious fear was that the vibration and noise of the passing train would drive cattle mad and cause the milk in their udders to curdle. A genuine concern, apparently, for the national cheese supply. But as you stand there, watching the train disappear into the distance, a new understanding of the world begins to dawn on you. The town of Manchester, which used to be a grueling, 2-day journey by horse-drawn coach, is now just a few hours away from Liverpool on the new railway. The psychological map of the world inside your head is being forcibly redrawn. Distances that were once formidable barriers, separating towns, families, and cultures, are now trivial inconveniences. The world isn't getting smaller, exactly, it's getting faster. The very concept of far away is starting to mean something different. You could, in theory, travel to another city in the morning and be back by nightfall, a feat that would have been the stuff of heroic legends just a generation ago. Historians still debate whether the railways were the primary engine of industrial growth, creating new markets and possibilities, or if they simply accelerated trends that were already underway. For you, the debate is irrelevant. You feel the change in your bones. The world is being bound together by these new veins of iron, and a new, faster pulse is beginning to beat. A pulse that will change everything, from the price of the food you eat to the very way you think about your place in the world. The iron horse brought you here, to the edge of this sprawling, man-made jungle, but it did not prepare you for the reality of navigating it on foot. The station vomits you out, not into a town square, but into a chaotic river of humanity that immediately sweeps you along in its current. There are no open fields here, no gentle horizon. The sky is a narrow, grey slit between the tops of towering brick buildings that lean in towards each other, blocking out the sun and trapping the smoke. The streets are not streets, they are canyons. They twist and turn without logic or reason, a maze of cobblestone and mud designed by accident and desperation. You are immediately, terrifyingly lost. The first thing you must learn is how to walk differently. You can no longer stroll, you must hustle, your shoulders hunched, your elbows kept close to your body. You are packed shoulder to shoulder with 1,000 strangers, a constant, jostling friction of damp wool and unwashed bodies. There is no such thing as personal space, that quaint rural notion. Here, you are part of a single, heaving organism. The noise is a physical assault. The clatter of iron-shod cartwheels on stone, the shouts of vendors hawking everything from meat pies to gin, the cries of unseen children, and always, in the background, the ceaseless, low thunder of distant factory machinery. It is a symphony of survival, and you are just one tiny, frantic note within it. The air is something you chew rather than breathe. It is a thick, yellow-grey soup of coal smoke from a million chimneys, laced with the metallic temps of industry. But beneath that is a smell far more intimate and foul. The city has no real sanitation. Human waste is simply tossed from windows into the gutters, where it mixes with rotting garbage and the effluvia from slaughterhouses. The river that flows through the heart of the city, the very river that powers some of the mills, is not a river of water. It is a slow-moving black artery of raw sewage and industrial chemical waste. It is a well-known fact that cholera, the Blue Death, stalks these streets. A terrifying specter born from the contaminated water that people are forced to drink. You quickly learn to breathe through your mouth, a small, futile defense against the overwhelming stench of progress. This is a world of total anonymity, a concept both liberating and terrifying. In your village, everyone knew your name, your family, your business. A good reputation was a form of currency. Here, you are nobody, a ghost. This anonymity creates a new kind of urban psychology. You must learn to be constantly vigilant, to watch for the pickpocket's nimble fingers, to distrust the too friendly stranger. But this new, desperate economy also creates professions you could never have imagined. You see them on the streets, the poorest of the poor. They are the pure finders, who scavenge the streets, collecting dog dung to sell to tanneries, which use the acidic properties of the pure in the leather curing process. It is a grim, odorous, but necessary role in this new ecosystem. You have to develop a new set of senses, a new kind of armor to survive. You learn not to make eye contact, to become invisible in plain sight. It is the beginning of the modern urbanite's defensive crouch. Historians still debate whether these new cities were simply cesspools of social decay and alienation, or if they simultaneously fostered new, resilient forms of community in pubs, chapels, and workers' societies, hidden within the chaos. For you, adrift in this overwhelming maze, the isolation feels absolute. The city is a factory, and its product is not just cloth, but a new kind of human, forged in noise, filth, and solitude. You are small, so small that the world of the factory is not a forest of machines, but a continent. You do not see the tops of the spinning frames, only a dense, moving jungle of iron legs, spinning spindles, and driving belts that slap and whir endlessly just above your head. Your world is lived at neat level. The floor is your landscape, a terrain of splintered wood, slick with grease and coated in a soft, treacherous layer of cotton fluff. You are barefoot, not out of choice, but because shoes are a luxury, and bare feet can better feel the vibrations of the machinery, a skill essential for survival. You breathe a permanent fog of cotton dust, a substance so fine it works its way into your lungs, your clothes, your very being. You cough a dry, fluffy cough that has become as natural to you as breathing. Your job has a simple, almost playful name. You are a scavenger, but there is no treasure to be found. Your task is to crawl on your hands and knees into the most dangerous place in this entire, roaring world, the space beneath the active machinery. You wait for the self-acting mule, a gigantic, mobile carriage of spindles, to roll outward on its iron tracks, spinning the thread. In that brief moment, while it is extended, you must scurry like a frightened mouse into the gap beneath, sweeping up the fallen cotton waste. Then, you must scurry back out before the carriage, weighing over a ton, rolls back on its inward journey. Its clearance from the floor is measured in inches. A moment's hesitation, a sleepy misjudgment of the rhythm, means you will not be scolded. You will be crushed. It is a game of chicken you must play hundreds of times a day, and you can only lose once. Fear is a constant companion, but like the noise, it eventually fades into a dull, background hum. A more immediate threat is the overseer. He stalks the aisles like a silent predator, his shadow falling over you long before you hear his footsteps. He carries a leather strap, and he is not afraid to use it for the smallest infraction. Falling asleep is the greatest sin. To combat this, he employs a range of cruelties. A common one is to tie a heavy weight to a drowsy child's neck, forcing them to hold their head up through sheer agonizing strain. They call this waiting, a grimly literal term for the burden you carry. The pain is a sharp, clear note that cuts through the fog of exhaustion, keeping you on your feet for just a little while longer. Your body is a map of your work. Your knees are permanently calloused and raw from crawling on the rough floor. Your fingers, from your other job as a piecer, are nimble and quick, trained to dart into the moving machinery to tie broken threads. But some of them are missing their tips, snatched away by a hungry gear. Your back, from a childhood spent, stooped, and crawling, is beginning to take on a permanent, sorrowful curve. Your growth is stunted by the poor nutrition and the lack of sunlight. You are old before you have ever been young. Historians still debate whether the families who sent their children to the mills were heartless exploiters or simply desperate people with no other choice in a brutal new economy. Your own mother, her face a permanent mask of worry, looks at your meager wages as the only thing keeping your family from the workhouse, a place even more feared than the factory. You have no memory of playing in a field. The concept of a toy is alien. Your games are the secret competitions with the other children to see who can gather the most waste, or the silent, grim race against the returning mule carriage. Your childhood has not been lost. It has been stolen, piece by piece, and fed into the hungry maw of the machines. The psychological impact of this is a scar that will never truly heal. You learn that the world is a place of relentless noise, constant danger, and the casual cruelty of adults. You learn that your worth is measured only by your speed and your ability to endure. The question is not just what this does to a child. The more profound question is, what kind of adult does such a child become? You walk away from the deafening thunder of the factory, your ears still ringing, and find yourself in a different part of the city, a world away. Here, the streets are wider, the air is marginally cleaner, and the houses are not packed together like rotten teeth. They stand apart, proud and sullen, monuments of brick and stone. You see one of the new masters of the universe, stepping from a handsome carriage. He is not a lord, not a man of ancient blood and inherited land. He is the factory owner, the Iron Master, a man whose fortune was forged in the same fire and noise that is currently consuming your soul. He wears no powdered wig or silken breeches. His uniform is severe, a suit of black, perfectly tailored wool. His only ornament a heavy gold chain draped across his waistcoat, tethered to a watch that measures time not in days, but in profits. His face is not relaxed and benevolent. It is etched with a permanent anxiety, the face of a man who has fought his way to the top and is terrified of sliding back down. His wealth is new, it is loud, and it is profoundly insecure. Unlike the old aristocracy, whose status was as natural and unquestioned as the sky, this new man must constantly prove his worth, and he does so with things. His house is his primary statement. It is a fortress of wealth, a hulking, Gothic-inspired mansion with too many gables, too many chimneys, and a riot of ornamental ironwork. It is not a building that whispers of elegance. It is one that screams of expense. It is a house not designed for comfortable living, but for storing the evidence of its owner's success. Through a tall, polished window, you catch a glimpse of the world within. The rooms are dark, filled with heavy mahogany furniture so densely packed there is barely room to move. Every surface is covered. There are porcelain figurines, stuffed birds under glass domes, intricate silver candelabras, and paintings in heavy gold frames. It is a museum of possession. His wife is another part of this display. You see her for a moment, a pale figure trapped in a cage of whalebone and steel. Her corset so tight it is a miracle she can breathe. Her dress a vast continent of silk and lace. She and her children are living mannequins, draped in the family's wealth for all to see. They are a testament to the fact that their husband and father earn so much money that they do not have to lift a single finger. The ultimate expression of this new psychology of money can be found in the garden behind the house. It is not a vegetable patch. Instead, you see a strange glass building, a pinery from which a thin plume of smoke rises. Inside, heated by a massive coal-burning furnace, grows the most exotic and desirable status symbol of the age, a pineapple. In the cold, damp climate of industrial England, cultivating a single pineapple could cost the equivalent of a working man's entire yearly wages. To serve one at a dinner party was the ultimate act of what some would later call conspicuous consumption. A blatant, almost vulgar display of having so much money you could literally burn it just to produce a piece of fruit. This single, spiky fruit says more about your social standing than 1,000 words. Historians still debate whether this new bourgeois culture was a genuine effort to build a new moral world based on hard work and family, or simply an anxious performance of status designed to imitate and eventually supplant the old landed aristocracy. For you, watching from the street, it is clear. A new language is being written, a language of objects, where your value as a person is slowly but surely being replaced by the value of the things you own. Your hands, once the masters of the loom, feel clumsy and useless now. You look at them, at the calluses and scars earned over a lifetime of skilled labor, and you see the marks of an obsolete creature. In the factory, they are only good for a single, repetitive motion, a task a clever monkey could be trained to do. The pride you once felt in producing a bolt of flawless cloth, a thing of utility and beauty, has been replaced by a gnawing, hollow feeling in your gut. It is the feeling of being de-skilled, of being made redundant, not by a lack of effort, but by the relentless march of iron and steam. This is more than a loss of income. It is a theft of identity, a psychological amputation. But in the dark, smoky corners of the taverns, new whispers begin, not of new inventions, but of defiance. You find yourself in a cellar one night, the air thick with the smell of cheap ale and nervous sweat. By the flickering light of a single tallow candle, you see the faces of men you know, weavers, croppers, spinners, men like you, their faces etched with the same quiet desperation. There is a solemnity here, a sense of shared purpose that you have not felt since the fences went up around the common lands. They speak of a leader, a mysterious, almost mythical figure known as General Ludd, or sometimes King Ludd. He is said to live in Sherwood Forest, like a new Robin Hood, but he doesn't steal from the rich to give to the poor. He defends the dignity of labor. His army is you. You learn that this is not a mindless rage against all machines. The target is specific. You are fighting against the new, wide stocking frames, which are used to create cheap, shoddy garments that are then sewn together by unskilled workers. These are called cut-ups, and they are an insult to your craft. You are also fighting against the gig mill, a machine that uses rollers to shear the nap of woolen cloth, a job that once required the immense skill of a master cropper. This is a fight against fraudulent and deceitful work, a battle to protect the quality and integrity of your trade. It is a moral crusade, disguised as a riot. You take an oath, a secret and solemn promise to be true to your brothers in arms, and you feel a spark of your old self return. You are no longer just an operative, you are a Luddite. One night, the call comes. You move as a silent army through the cold, moonless dark, your faces blackened with soot to hide your identities. Your weapon is not a sword or a musket. It is a heavy sledgehammer, its iron head affectionately nicknamed Enoch, after a local blacksmith who made both the hammers and the original machines. The name is a grim joke. Enoch made them, and Enoch shall break them. You reach a small mill, a dark and silent hulk against the stars. The door splinters easily. Inside, the machines stand in neat rows, silent and arrogant in the darkness. And then the work begins. The first blow of the hammer on an iron frame rings out like a gunshot, a sound of pure, cathartic release. It is a sound of defiance, of a human being pushing back against the iron tide. You swing the hammer with all the frustration and rage that has been building inside you for years. With every shatter of a gear, with every splintering of a wooden frame, you are not just breaking a machine. You are trying to smash the clock, to silence the factory bell, to reclaim your own soul from the noise and the filth. The government in London becomes so terrified of this movement that in 1812 they passed the Frame Breaking Act, making your nighttime activities a capital offence, punishable by hanging. At one point, there are more British soldiers fighting the Luddites in the north of England than are fighting Napoleon's armies in Spain. Historians still debate whether the Luddites were the last gasp of a dying craft system or the first organized working-class movement fighting for control over the means of production. In this moment, swinging Enoch in the darkness, you only know that for the first time in a long time, you feel powerful again. The sound of Enoch's hammer has faded into the past, a final, defiant cry that was ultimately swallowed by the ever-loudening roar of the machines. The Luddite rebellion was crushed, its leaders hanged, its spirit broken, and the factories, now safe from the sledgehammer, did not just continue, they multiplied. They churned out goods with a terrifying, inhuman efficiency, flooding the world with more cloth, more pots, more pins, more everything than had ever existed before. This victory created a new and unexpected problem. The problem was no longer how to make things, it was how to sell them. Your world, for generations, has been governed by the simple logic of need. You buy a new pot when your old one cracks. You buy a new coat when your old one is worn to rags. You own what is necessary, and very little more. But an economy built on necessity is slow and predictable. The new industrial economy required something far more volatile, far more potent. It required desire. And so, a new kind of magic begins to appear on the city's grimy walls. You see them plastered over the brickwork, a chaotic tapestry of paper promises. These are advertisements. They are a new and aggressive art form, shouting for your attention. They make bold, almost unbelievable claims. Soaps that will not just clean you, but will bestow upon you a radiant, aristocratic beauty. Pills that will cure everything from a common cold to a broken heart. Tonics, often laced with a comforting dose of alcohol or opium, that promise to restore the vigor of youth. The language is a breathless, urgent prose, designed to plant a seed of dissatisfaction in your mind. You did not know your soap was inadequate. You did not know your vigor needed restoring. But now, the paper on the wall tells you so, and a tiny, anxious question begins to sprout in your mind. This new art of creating desire had its grandmasters, men like the American showman P. Barnum, whose influence was felt even across the Atlantic. He understood that the truth was far less important than a good story. He would advertise fantastical creatures like the Fiji mermaid, which was in reality the torso of a monkey sewn onto the tail of a fish, creating a grotesque but irresistibly curious object. People knew it was likely a hoax, but they paid their money anyway. They were not paying to see a real mermaid. They were paying for the thrill of wanting to believe, for the fun of being fooled. This was a crucial psychological leap. The product itself was secondary to the desire for it. Then, one day, you find yourself standing before the physical embodiment of this new psychology, a palace of commerce, a department store. Its entrance is a vast archway, and its most miraculous feature is the sheer expanse of its windows. Great, single panes of plate glass, a new and expensive technology, allow you to see directly into a brightly lit world of wonders. This is not a grimy shop with a guarded counter. It is an open invitation to a fantasy world. You step inside, and the chaos of the street falls away. The air is warm and smells faintly of perfume and polished wood. Bright gas lights hang from the ceiling, banishing all shadows and making the goods glitter like treasure. You are in a cathedral dedicated to the religion of the object. Goods are not hidden away in barrels or crates. They are displayed. Mountains of colorful ribbons, pyramids of identical boots, cascades of shimmering fabrics. Everything is arranged to be beautiful, to be touched, to be coveted. And here is the most revolutionary concept of all. You are allowed to browse. No one demands to know what you want. You can wander freely, dreaming. Another innovation, introduced by pioneers like Aristide Bouchicot at his Parisian store Le Bon Marché, was the fixed price tag. There is no need for the intimidating dance of haggling. The price is clearly marked, democratizing the act of shopping. Historians still debate whether this new consumerism was a form of liberation, offering choice and identity to the masses, or a new, more subtle form of social control, trapping people in a cycle of desire and debt. You only know that you walked into this building needing nothing at all, and now you find yourself wanting everything. Before you were a factory hand, you were a weaver. But even before that, you lived in a world where a single person might make a whole object. A blacksmith would forge a complete plowshare, from smelting the iron to hammering out the final shape. A shoemaker would craft an entire shoe, from cutting the leather to stitching the sole. Their name, their reputation, was bound up in that finished object. They were not making a product, they were making a shoe. Their shoe. This created a holistic sense of work, a deep, psychological satisfaction in seeing a process through from beginning to end. Your identity was your skill, and your skill was whole, indivisible. But now, you are standing in a different kind of workshop, one even more specialized than the textile mill. This is a pin factory, and it is the perfect illustration of a new and devastatingly powerful idea. The idea was most famously described by the Scottish philosopher Adam Smith in his book, The Wealth of Nations. You watch, and you see his theory made flesh. You do not see men making pins. Instead, you see a long line of men, each performing a single, tiny, endlessly repeated part of the process. One man sits all day, doing nothing but drawing out the wire. A second man does nothing but straighten it. A third man cuts it into lengths. A fourth sharpens the point. A fifth, and this is considered a distinct and specialized trade, grinds the top end to prepare it for the head. The process of making the head is itself divided into 2 or 3 separate operations. Then there is another man, whose sole job it is to attach the head to the pin, another to whiten the pins by boiling them in a solution, and finally, a different worker, with a different set of muscles, trained for a different task, whose entire existence is dedicated to sticking the finished pins into a piece of paper in neat rows. Adam Smith famously observed that by this division of labor, a small workshop of 10 men could produce over 48,000 pins in a single day. An individual worker, he reckoned, attempting to make a whole pin by himself, could scarcely make one, and certainly not 20. The gains in productivity are staggering, undeniable, almost magical. It is the logic of the factory floor taken to its absolute, microscopic extreme. But as you watch these men, you feel a profound sense of unease. You see the man who only sharpens the point. His body is contorted into a permanent crouch over the grinding wheel. The muscles in his right arm and shoulder are overdeveloped and knotted, while the rest of his body is weak. His eyes are fixed, his mind is numb. He has mastered this one tiny action to a degree of superhuman efficiency, but in the process, he has lost something immeasurable. He has lost his wholeness. He is no longer a craftsman. He is a human cog in a pin-making machine. If you asked him to draw the wire, or even to stick the finished pin into the paper, he would be slow and clumsy. His skill is a fragment. This, you realize, is the true cost of 48,000 pins. It is the fracturing of the human soul. Smith himself, while celebrating the economic efficiency of this system, was not blind to its human cost. He worried that the man whose whole life is spent performing a few simple operations generally becomes as stupid and ignorant as it is possible for a human creature to become. It is a brutal assessment, but standing here, watching the vacant, repetitive motions of these men, you can see its truth. Historians still debate whether Smith was a heartless cheerleader for capitalism or a nuanced observer who saw both its immense power and its terrifying human consequences. You see the birth of a new kind of poverty, a poverty of the spirit, where a man can work all day and have nothing to show for it but a paycheck and a soul that has been divided and subdivided into a single, meaningless motion. You look down at the simple, coarse cotton shirt on your back. It is one of the few things you own that is new, a product of the very system that employs you. It is thin, not as warm as the wool you grew up with, but it is cheap. It represents a small, affordable comfort in a hard world. You have never thought to ask where it comes from. You know it was spun in one mill and woven in another, perhaps just a few streets away. The journey of the finished cloth is a short one, but the journey of the material itself, the soft, white fibers that make up every thread, that is a different story entirely. It is a story that stretches across an ocean, a story written in sweat and sunlight, and bound together by an invisible network of shocking power. The mills of Manchester have a hunger that can never be filled. They have devoured all the wool from the local hills, all the flax from the fields. Their appetite is endless. They are a great, devouring maw, and their favorite food is cotton. But cotton does not grow in the cold, damp soil of England. So, the masters of the factories had to look elsewhere. Their gaze fell upon a land thousands of miles away, a place of relentless, scorching sun and vast, fertile plains. The American South, you try to picture it, this anti-England, a place where the sky is a brilliant, unforgiving blue instead of a soft, familiar grey. A place where the heat is a physical presence, a heavy blanket that smothers the air. And in this land, under this sun, you see fields stretching to the horizon, not with wheat or barley, but with low, green bushes dotted with puffs of white, like a field of earthbound clouds. And you see people working in these fields. Their hands, not like yours, but darker, move with a desperate speed, pulling the fluffy cotton from the sharp, spiky bowls that hold it. Their backs are bent in a permanent, painful curve. They work from the moment the sun rises, a brutal orange eye in the sky, until it sinks below the horizon, offering no relief. These are the hands that picked the very cotton that now rests against your skin. They are the hands of enslaved people, bought and sold like cattle, their lives measured not in years, but in the number of pounds of cotton they can harvest in a day. This vast system of human suffering was made brutally efficient by another machine, a cousin to the spinning mules and power looms you know so well. It was the cotton gin, a clever invention by a man named Eli Whitney, which could separate the sticky seeds from the cotton fibers with incredible speed. Before the gin, it was a slow, painstaking process. After the gin, a single machine could do the work of 50 people, and the demand for cotton, and therefore for the enslaved labor to plant and pick it, exploded. But the network that connects you to these distant fields is more than just ships carrying raw materials. The money itself flows through channels you cannot see. The port of Liverpool, not far from you, has become the center of this world. Its merchants grew rich, not just from shipping cotton, but from insuring the slave ships themselves, from financing the plantations, from creating a complex web of credit that tied the slave economy of America directly to the industrial economy of England. The very banks that hold your factory owners' money were built on this foundation. Historians still debate the degree to which industrial capitalism was fundamentally dependent on slavery for its takeoff, with some arguing it was an essential precondition, and others seeing it as a related but separate economic system. That single garment on your back is a map of this new global empire, an empire woven not just from cotton, but from human lives. The threads that bring you a small measure of warmth were first picked by hands that knew only the scorching heat of a sun they were not allowed to look at. The empire woven from cotton has a skeleton, and that skeleton is made of paper. For every bale of cotton shipped from America, for every bolt of cloth sold in London, for every wage paid to a factory hand, a piece of paper is created. An invoice, a bill of lading, a receipt, a ledger entry. The sheer volume of transactions in this new hyper-connected world has created a monster that no single merchant can control. It is a tidal wave of paper, a blizzard of numbers that threatens to bury the very men who created it. And so, to tame this paper beast, a new kind of factory was invented. It has no smokestack, no roaring furnace, no thundering machines. Its only sound is the scratching of 100 pens. This is the office. You have escaped the factory floor. You have traded the swirling cotton dust for the faint, dry smell of paper and ink. Your hands, for the first time in years, are clean. You wear a starched white collar, a symbol of your new station that you must painstakingly wash and press each night. This collar is your badge of honor, the fragile shield that separates you from the grimy, manual world of the blue-collar masses. You are a clerk. It feels like a promotion, a step up in the world. But as you take your place on a high, backless wooden stool, you begin to understand that you have only traded one kind of machine for another. You are in a large, dimly lit room, the gas lamps hissing softly overhead. Before you, and on all sides, are rows upon rows of other men, identically dressed, hunched over massive, sloping desks. They look like a congregation of monks, silently transcribing holy texts. But there are no holy texts here. There are only ledgers, vast books filled with columns of numbers. Your work is the mental equivalent of the pin factory. The principle of the division of labor has been applied to thought itself. You are not a bookkeeper who understands the entire financial health of the company. You are a copyist. Your job, for 12 hours a day, is to take a number from a column in one book and write it, perfectly and without error, into a column in another book. That is all. The man next to you does the same, but with a different set of books. You are a single, human gear in a great, silent machine of accounting. The tools of your trade are a steel nib pen, a pot of black ink, and a sheet of blotting paper. But new technologies are emerging to increase your efficiency. The most miraculous is a recent invention by a man named Ralph Wedgwood. It is called a stylographic writer, but you know it by a simpler name, carbon paper. A thin sheet of paper, coated on one side with a black, waxy ink. By placing it between two fresh sheets, you can create a perfect duplicate of your work with a single stroke of a sharp stylus. You can make 2 copies at once. The productivity is astounding. The logic is inescapable. The psychological pressures here are quieter than on the factory floor, but they are no less brutal. The silence itself is a weight. The head clerk sits on a raised platform at the front of the room, his eyes scanning for any sign of distraction, any moment of idleness. There is no physical danger here, but the fear of making a mistake, of a single misplaced decimal point that could unravel weeks of work, is a constant, gnawing anxiety. The work is not physically exhausting, but it is mentally annihilating. It is the perfect depiction of the life Charles Dickens would immortalize in characters like Bob Cratchit, a life of quiet desperation, of maintaining the appearance of middle-class respectability on a workman's wages. Historians still debate whether the rise of the clerical class represented a genuine avenue for social mobility or simply created a new, white-collar proletariat, just as trapped and exploited as their blue-collar counterparts. All you know is that, at the end of the day, your back aches from the stool, your eyes burn from the dim light, and your mind feels as though it has been bleached of all color, all thought, leaving only columns of endless, meaningless numbers. You turn the key in the lock of your own front door. The sound is small but significant, a metallic click that separates your world into 2 distinct halves. The door swings inward, and you step across the threshold, leaving the muddy street, the noise of the carts, and the lingering smell of coal smoke behind you. You close the door, and the sound it makes as it shuts is one of finality. It is a thick, wooden wall you are placing between yourself and the relentless, grinding world of the office. In that single, simple action, you are performing a ritual that your own father could never have imagined. His work and his life were a single, seamless garment. Yours is a life of 2 separate and often opposing parts, the public sphere of work and the private sphere of home. This place is not the one-room cottage of your memory, where the rhythms of work and family life were tangled together around the loom and the hearth. This is a small, terraced house, but its design reflects a revolutionary new way of thinking about life. There is a small front room, the parlor, which is kept meticulously clean and is used only for receiving guests, a kind of domestic stage on which to perform your family's respectability. Then there is the kitchen, a room specifically for the preparation of food. The very idea of having separate rooms for separate functions is a powerful reflection of the way your life is now being compartmentalized. Your wife greets you, and you see how her world has been reinvented as profoundly as yours. Her hands are no longer covered in the lanolin of raw wool, her labor no longer producing a tangible, sellable product. Instead, her work has become invisible, yet all-encompassing. Her job is to be the creator and guardian of this new and precious space, the home as a sanctuary. She fights a constant, heroic battle against the filth of the city, which tries to seep in under the door and through the windows. She cooks, she cleans, she mends. She is the high priestess of a new religion, what social observers are beginning to call the cult of domesticity. A whole new literature has sprung up to guide her in this sacred task. Magazines and household manuals, like the wildly popular Mrs. Beeton's Book of Household Management, provide encyclopedic instructions on everything from how to boil an egg to how to manage servants, even if the only servant is a single, overworked girl. These books preach a new gospel, that a woman's role is to make the home a haven in a heartless world, a place of comfort and moral purity to which the man can retreat, battered and bruised from the brutal, amoral battlefield of industrial capitalism. In the corner of your parlor stands a new and curious object, a tough, leafy plant in a ceramic pot. It is an aspidistra. It produces no food, no fiber, no medicine. Its only function is to exist, to be green, to bring a hint of nature into this artificial environment. It is a living ornament, a symbol of a home that is no longer a site of production, but of presentation. This redefinition of the home solidifies a new and rigid set of gender roles. You, the man, are the breadwinner. Your role is to go out into the public world and earn the money that sustains the family. She, the woman, is the homemaker. Her role is to manage the private world, to turn your wages into a comfortable, well-ordered life. Her economic contribution, once direct and visible, is now indirect and largely unvalued in the new cash-based economy. Historians still debate whether this ideology of separate spheres was a new form of patriarchal oppression that trapped women in the home, or whether it gave them a new domain of power and moral authority from which they could shape the family and, by extension, the nation's character. For you, it feels like a necessary bargain. The world outside is cold, competitive, and the idea that you can close your door on it and enter a space defined by warmth, love, and order is the one thing that makes the daily grind bearable. The modern home has been invented, not just as a physical structure, but as a psychological necessity. The factory bell rings its final, liberating clang for the day. You push back from your high stool in the office, the muscles in your back screaming in protest. The door of your house closes behind you, shutting out the world of work. And now you are faced with a new and strangely modern problem. A block of time, several hours long, that belongs entirely to you. It is a void. In the old world of the cottage, there was no such thing as free time. There was only work to be done, and rest to be taken when the work was finished. Now, time itself has been cleaved in two. There is the company's time, and there is your time. And your time feels empty, a vessel that needs to be filled. For many, the first and most obvious way to fill this void is at the bottom of a glass. The city is full of pubs, and, more dazzlingly, the new gin palaces. These are not the dark, grubby alehouses of your memory. They are temples of forgetting, ablaze with the brilliant, hissing light of gas lamps. Their windows vast sheets of polished plate glass, their interiors a fantasy of gilded mirrors and ornate mahogany. Gin is cheap, a quick and potent escape from the grime and monotony of your life. The warmth spreads through your belly, the noise of the crowd washes over you, and for a few precious hours, the anxiety recedes. But you see the cost of this escape in the hollow eyes and shaking hands of men who have made the Jinn Palace their only sanctuary. The city's new masters, the factory owners and moral reformers, see this void of free time not as a gift, but as a danger. An idle, drunken workforce is an unproductive one. So, they begin a great project to engineer a new kind of recreation, something rational and improving. You see the first results of this on a Sunday afternoon. You find yourself walking in a new public park, a vast, manicured expanse of green in the heart of the industrial city. This is not the wild, untamed nature you once knew. It is nature tamed and disciplined. The paths are straight, the flower beds are arranged in rigid geometric patterns, and signs instruct you to keep off the grass. In the center, a brass band, perhaps sponsored by a local factory, plays patriotic and religious tunes from a new, ornate bandstand. It is pleasant, it is orderly, and it is designed to instill in you a sense of quiet, civic pride. A more vigorous form of rational recreation begins to take hold. In a muddy field on the edge of town, you join a roaring crowd of men. This is the new religion of football. In the villages, the game was a chaotic, often violent affair with few rules, sometimes involving an entire village brawling over an inflated pig's bladder. Here, the game is becoming organized. Teams are formed, often based around a workplace, like the Dio Square team from the Woolwich Arsenal Armaments Factory or a local church. Rules are being written down and standardized. You are not just watching a game, you are participating in a new form of tribal identity. You cheer for your team, your factory, your neighborhood. You feel a sense of belonging that has been stripped from you by the anonymous city. Alongside these organized sports, older, more peculiar pastimes still survive. You might see a group of men playing Kuna and Spell, a game where a small, hard ball, the Kuna, is released from a spring-loaded trap and then struck with a stick. A strange and uniquely Northern English passion. Then, thanks to the Iron Horse, the ultimate escape becomes possible. The day trip. You see posters advertising cheap excursion trains to the seaside. One Saturday, you join the crush of humanity at the station and are whisked away to a place you have only ever heard of in stories. You step off the train and the air is different, sharp and clean and tasting of salt. And then you see it, a vast, grey, heaving expanse of water that meets the sky, the sea. You watch families, pale from the factory towns, paddling in the cold water, their trousers and skirts rolled up. A strange and joyful ritual. It is a scene orchestrated by men like Thomas Cook, who realized he could turn a profit by packaging travel for the masses. Historians still debate whether these new forms of leisure were a genuine gift to the working class, offering them new freedoms and experiences, or a sophisticated form of social control, designed to channel their energies away from political radicalism and back into sober, productive lives. As you stand there, feeling the unfamiliar sensation of sand between your toes, you're not sure you care. For the first time, this empty block of time feels truly full. You are no longer in the grimy, gaslit world of the 19th century. You are here now, in a world of clean, silent light. But the ghost of the factory is closer than you think. It is not in the skyline, but in your hand. You hold it now, a smooth, cool rectangle of glass and metal. Your smartphone. You look at its bright, glowing screen, and you see the culmination of a 200-year-old story, the final, perfect evolution of the factory's logic. This small, miraculous device is the factory in your pocket, and you are both its master and its most devoted, unpaid worker. Think of the division of labor that Adam Smith observed in the pin factory. Your phone takes this principle and applies it not to physical tasks, but to your own mind, your own attention. You swipe through a social media feed. Each post, each image, each short video is a tiny, self-contained unit of information, a digital pin. You see a picture from a friend's vacation, You read a headline about a political scandal. You watch a 60-second clip of a dancing cat. Your brain processes each one in a fraction of a second and moves on to the next. You are not engaging in deep, sustained thought. You are performing a rapid, repetitive task, the processing of microcontent. You are the man on the assembly line, sharpening the point of an endless stream of digital pins, your attention fractured into 1,000 tiny pieces. The factory clock, that great tyrant on the skyline, has been miniaturized and brought inside you. It lives on your screen, a constant, glowing reminder of the relentless forward march of linear time. But it has become even more demanding. It is no longer content to just dictate your working hours. Its notifications, its dings and buzzes and pings, are the new factory whistle. A call to attention that can sound at any moment, day or night. It interrupts your dinner. It wakes you from your sleep. It has shattered the sacred wall that once separated your work life from your home life. The office, that great factory of the mind, has escaped its brick-and-mortar confines and now follows you everywhere. You answer an email while waiting in line for coffee. You join a video conference from your own kitchen. There is no longer a clear boundary, no sanctuary. You are always, potentially, on the clock. This device is also the ultimate department store, the palace of wanting made portable. It learns your desires from every click, every search, every like. It then presents you with a perfectly curated, endless stream of things you might want to buy. The advertisements are no longer just plastered on city walls. They are personalized, targeted, whispered directly into your ear. The process of consumption has become frictionless. You can see an object and own it within minutes, with a simple tap of your finger. The new god of desire is no longer housed in a grand building downtown. It lives in the palm of your hand, a constant temptation, a perpetual engine for creating dissatisfaction with what you already have. And you are the worker. You create the content that fills the social media feeds for free. You provide the data that fuels the advertising engines for free. You meticulously build a digital version of yourself, a personal brand, performing a kind of emotional labor that would have been unimaginable to your ancestors. Even your leisure time has been industrialized. You optimize your hobbies, you biohack your sleep, you track your steps and your heart rate, turning the simple act of living into a series of data points to be measured, analyzed, and improved. A strange, obscure curiosity of our digital age is the rise of unboxing videos, where people film themselves opening new products. It is the ultimate expression of consumerism, where the anticipation of the object, the desire itself, becomes the entertainment. Historians of the future will surely debate whether this digital revolution was a great democratizing force that connected the world and empowered individuals, or the final, most insidious stage of the industrial project, a system that turned human consciousness itself into the last, great untapped resource to be mined for profit. You lock the screen, and the black, reflective surface shows you the face of the factory's most perfect, most willing product. You zoom out, pull your focus away from the glowing screen in your hand, away from the hum of the city, and keep pulling back. Rise above the rooftops, above the grid of streets, until the entire sprawling metropolis is just a grey, geometric scar on the landscape. Keep going. Ascend through the clouds, into the thin, cold air, where the world curves away from you into a blue and white sphere. From this godlike perspective, you can see the true, planetary cost of the story that began with a single, clumsy steam engine pumping water from a coal mine. You are seeing the scars upon the earth. Before the revolution, humanity's relationship with the natural world was one of intimacy and negotiation. You lived within the rhythms of nature, not above them. You relied on the power of your own muscles, the strength of an ox, the force of the wind in a sail, or the current of a river turning a millstone. The energy you could command was limited, drawn from the immediate, visible world around you. This limitation imposed a kind of respect. The forest was a resource, but it was also a home to spirits, a place of mystery that you entered with caution. The earth was your mother, a living being you depended upon, not a dead thing to be exploited. The Industrial Revolution shattered that relationship. It was a declaration of independence from the living world, a Promethean moment where humanity stole a new kind of fire, not from the gods, but from the earth's deep past. The black rocks you saw being fed into the furnace of the Newcomen engine were coal. This was not the energy of the present, of the sun that warmed your face that day. It was ancient sunlight, the captured energy of prehistoric forests, buried and compressed over millions of years. For the first time, you were not just using the Earth's annual income of solar energy, you were raiding its savings account. And once you learned that trick, you never stopped. The demand for coal, and later for oil and gas, became the insatiable, subterranean hunger of the entire modern world. From your high vantage point, you can see the consequences of this hunger. You see vast open-pit mines that have decapitated mountains, leaving behind sterile, moon-like landscapes. You see the ghostly silhouettes of offshore oil rigs, drilling deep into the ocean floor. You see the veins of pipelines that cross continents like stitches on a wound. You see the permanent, brownish haze of pollution that hangs over the great industrial centers of the world, a visible testament to the billions of tons of ancient carbon that have been exhumed and burned, released back into the atmosphere. This profound change in your energy source led to a profound psychological shift. Nature was no longer a partner to be respected, but a resource to be consumed. It became a collection of raw materials, an input for the great industrial machine. A forest was not a complex ecosystem, it was a certain number of board feet of timber. A river was not a living artery of the land, it was a source of hydroelectric power and a convenient place to dump industrial waste. This mindset, this mechanistic worldview, saw the planet as a vast inanimate machine, and humanity as its rightful engineer. A curious and tragic example of this was the widespread practice of smoke reading in industrial towns. People would look at the color and thickness of the smoke pouring from the factory chimneys to judge the economic health of their community. Thick, black smoke meant the factories were busy, jobs were secure, and the world was well. A clean sky was a sign of economic depression. Pollution became, perversely, a symbol of prosperity. Historians still debate when the long-term environmental consequences of industrialization first became a matter of serious scientific and public concern. But for a long time, the dominant narrative was one of triumphant progress against a hostile natural world. From up here, floating in the silent darkness, you see that it was never a war. It was a slow, methodical poisoning of your own home. You are coming back down to Earth now, a slow, gentle descent from the cold silence of orbit. The great planetary scars fade from view, replaced by the familiar patterns of cities and landscapes. And then finally, you are back in the quiet stillness of your own room. The journey is over, or is it? You have left the 19th century behind, but its architects and its inventions have not left you. They live on, not in the world outside, but in the world within. There is a ghost in your machine, the complex, invisible machine of your own mind. It isn't a single spirit, but a legion of them, the quiet, persistent echoes of the world that was forged in fire and steam. The first ghost is the clock. It is the relentless, linear tyrant that you carry with you, not just in your pocket, but in your soul. It has taught you to see your life as a resource to be managed, a timeline to be optimized. It has taught you to feel a low, persistent hum of guilt whenever you are still, whenever you are not making the most of your time. This feeling is the direct descendant of a new moral code that blossomed during the Revolution. What the sociologist Max Weber would famously call the Protestant work ethic, where hard work was not just a means to an end, but a sign of a virtuous soul. This ghost whispers that rest must be earned, that idleness is a sin, and that your value is a direct measure of your productivity. The second ghost is the fractured man from the pin factory. His legacy is the quiet anxiety that you are not whole, that your skills are too narrow, or not narrow enough. You feel this ghost in the pressure to have a niche, a specialization, to become an expert in one tiny part of an impossibly complex world. It makes you a more efficient cog in the economic machine, but it leaves you with a longing for a sense of completeness, for the satisfaction of seeing a project through from its messy beginning to its tangible end, a satisfaction that was the birthright of the pre-industrial craftsman. The third ghost whispers from the plate glass window of the first department store. It is the ghost of manufactured desire, the voice that quietly suggests a new purchase might fix the unnameable dissatisfaction you feel. It tells you that you are what you own, that your identity can be assembled from a collection of products, that your happiness is just one more purchase away. It is a voice that thrives on comparison and creates a constant, low-grade fever of wanting. In the late 19th century, doctors identified a new illness that seemed to afflict the professional and intellectual classes. They called it neurasthenia, or American nervousness. It was a condition of fatigue, anxiety, headaches, and mild depression, a sickness of the nerves caused by the relentless pace and sensory overload of modern, urban, industrial life. It is the great-grandfather of what you now call burnout, a clear sign that the human nervous system was already struggling to keep pace with the machine it had created. These ghosts are not just historical curiosities, they are the foundational code of your modern operating system. They dictate the rhythms of your day, the anxieties in your heart, and the very way you understand who you are. Historians still debate whether we are living in a post-industrial society or simply the most advanced and pervasive stage of the industrial project itself. As you lie here, in the quiet of the digital age, you can feel the truth of it. The factory was never just a building, it was an idea about efficiency, about time, about labor, about value, and that